In the Third Age, war came again to Middle-earth, as the will of Sauron searched anew for his ring. The Dark Lord compelled many into his service, including Saruman, a once great and wise wizard. Thus war came to Rohan, forcing King Theoden to seek refuge in the fortress of Helm's Deep. And now a vast army shall assault these ancient walls with siege ladders and war machines. To survive, the defenders must hold the deeping wall and the gate to the keep, but all must beware the devilry of Saruman's devices. Through the bravery and sacrifice of many, King Theoden has led the people of Rohan to victory. But the danger has not passed, for the pits of Isengard and Moria yet remain, and Sauron directs all evil from atop his dark tower. Yet the seeds of resistance have been planted, for Gondor still stands defiant, and an ancient slumbering power has now awakened to aid their cause. And in this great war, the White Wizard shall lead us, for it is his destiny to contest Sauron for the fate of all of Middle-earth. Trusting his army had destroyed Theoden's people at Helm's Deep, Saruman believed himself secure in his tower of Orthanc. But the ringed walls of Isengard proved no defense against the vengeance of Ents and men. And within Saruman's pits, many wrathful Rohan prisoners awaited liberation, while his machineries belch foul vapors. Above, Saruman directs his defense and marshals his sorcery, for the battle is far from certain. And now Ent and Rohirrim alike must face Saruman's wrath. His power shattered, Saruman could not prevail against the courage that was arrayed against him, and in the end, his betrayal was avenged. Treebeard now serves as master of Orthanc, and the pits of Isengard have been cleansed of Saruman's filth. But the Dark Lord's power has not been broken, for Saruman served merely as a pawn, a distraction to weaken Gondor's borders. Within Mordor, the armies of Sauron grow, and his war has hardly begun. To the north, the mines of Moria also grow ever more deadly. Here, in times past, Gandalf cast down the Balrog after days of combat. That terrible battle cost him his very life, but permitted the Ring-Bearer to escape those dark and dreadful halls. But the great underground city of Moria still remains a breeding pit for goblins and other foul things. Now is the moment when the free people must at last reclaim Moria, and Gimli the Dwarf shall lead them. Yet all must remain wary, for fissures open everywhere, and Gandalf fears that a new evil might stalk those ancient halls. At last the Balrog of Morgoth is broken and has been cast down, returning to the bottomless pits of Moria. The ancestral home of the dwarves has now been reclaimed, and the creatures that infested it flee our wrath. But Moria's liberators dare not tarry, for the Dark Lord Sauron has now unleashed his armies upon the world, and all the free people must hasten to its defense. Osgiliath shall play yet another part in this war. Faramir brought the Ring-Bearer here, but wisely allowed him to continue his quest. Now a garrison of Gondor's defenders keep watch, ever wary. The warriors that hold this outpost secretly hope for Faramir and his Ithilien rangers to return at dawn. But the ranks of the orcs continue to swell, and hope alone is but a flimsy shield. Silence shrouds the far shore of the Anduin, as the defenders of Osgiliath are left alone to sharpen their fears. In the gathering darkness, dawn cannot arrive swiftly enough for these brave men of Gondor. Faramir fights valiantly against the forces of Mordor, But his warriors cannot all stand before the relentless tide. Many share a grim fate, and few survive the onrushing horror. Sauron's massive armies continue their great assault against us all. The remaining defenders of the West are the enemy's final barrier, for they wish to slay all who remain within Middle-earth. The enemy is as countless as the leaves of the forest, and hope seems lost, for the Dark Lord cares not how many shall fall. Now the darkness falls upon Gondor, and Minas Tirith is encircled by a ring of iron-shod malice. Great siege towers lumber towards the beleaguered walls, each burdened with a deadly orc horde. Upon the main gate, the Dark Lord unleashes Grond, a terrible battering ram of wolf-like wrath. For hope of victory, Gondor's warriors must hold each ring of their city for as long as they're able, before retreating deeper within their burning citadel. But in the darkest hour, horns echo through the city. For an ancient oath has been fulfilled, and Rohan has come at last. Theoden has emptied the north, and his horsemen dare risk all. The orcs must abandon the city and face this looming threat. And now, upon the open fields of battle, shall the fate of Gondor be decided. Riding to death and ruin in relief of Minas Tirith, the riders of Rohan smash into the heart of the Orc army. Nothing upon the fields of Pelennor can resist their fury. Beset on all sides by siege towers and great war beasts, Theoden's brave warriors must also overcome an endless tide of orcs and warg riders. But should the Rohirrim do sufficient damage to Sauron's armies, surely the Witch King shall be drawn forth. His defeat would turn the tide of battle, for it is said that fear binds them to his cause. Still, the battle hangs in precarious balance, until at last Aragorn appears with the army of the dead. Then nothing that lives can survive their wrath. Great as our victory might seem, this war is not yet won. The Dark Lord still gathers strength behind the walls of Mordor. To draw the eye of Sauron far from the Ringbearer, even greater sacrifices must now be endured. The men of the West must confront him upon his borders, and within his realm, and even dare to assault the Dark Lord himself. In ages past, the Dark Lord seized Minas Morgul and corrupted it with vile sorcery. It became the Witch King's foul domain, illuminated still by pale corpse-light. Both orcs and Sauron's magic guard this fortress, sapping the strength of all who venture near. And hovering above, ringwraiths still guard this city well. Through siegecraft and strength of arms, the men of the West must shatter the gates of this citadel and subdue the evil within. Brave warriors drove many foul creatures from Minas Morgul, but the evil that taints this city cannot be fully cleansed. Even should the city be razed, no man would dare dwell there so long as Sauron still lives. So our ordeal is not yet concluded. For to defeat Sauron utterly, the Ringbearer must first destroy the One Ring in the fires of Mount Doom. A small, brave army stands at last within the jaws of Sauron's trap. But the courage of men will not fail, and their hope will not fade. For they hold that their sacrifice at the Black Gate of Mordor shall gain time for Frodo to at last destroy the One Ring. And in this final hour, the captains of the West must continue to fight for their freedom, while their breath still remains. There was no hope of survival in that final hour for any who stood upon the battlefield. Yet they did not despair. Although their enemies drew near and their arms grew weary, no man held fear in his heart. But fate decreed our world was not destined to end in that hour. For the power of the ring corrupted all it touched, in ways that even its evil spirit could not imagine. And in that final, desperate moment, the ring-bearer fulfilled his quest. In a single heartbeat, the Dark Lord Sauron was no more. In truth, our victory was won by the smallest of things. Our fate balanced upon the edge of a knife. But then, when hope at last prevailed, that knife turned and plunged deep into the heart of our enemy. And victory, at last, was ours. Remember always that upon those grim battlefields, the hearts of the free peoples did not fail, and their courage did not falter. And thus the third age of Middle-earth ended in triumph, and not despair.